Next Star Neighbor by Peter Filler. Chapter 6 RD-90 A Random Encounter. 30 years ago, long before Jodas and Genix arrived safely on Earth, a curious and advanced radio droid named RD-90 stumbled upon a human by coincidence. RD-90 was aboard Tic Tac 1, a sleek dish-shaped spacecraft traveling from Zebo, a vibrant and intelligent world orbiting the closest star to Earth, Proxima Centauri. Designed for deep space reconnaissance, RD-90 had been assigned a secret mission to reach Earth undetected and wait 30 years in silent observation. As the ship neared Earth's orbit, the navigation alarm went off. A debris field, full of meteors and asteroid fragments, threatened the mission. RD-90 took manual control of Tic Tac 1, dodging cosmic hazards with precision until Earth's blue oceans and green lands became into clear view. Final descent was planned for a discreet patch of wilderness near Devil's Mountain Trail in Chestnut Ridge, New York. But something unexpected happened. While recalibrating the ship's descent, RD-90's radio scanner intercepted a human phone call. An ordinary voice, filled with tension and wonder. The signal came from nearby Bear Mountain. The voice belonged to Pete Roberts, an amateur hiker. RD-90, programmed with analytical curiosity, couldn't resist. He shifted the landing coordinates and brought Tic Tac 1 down onto a ridge near Bear Mountain, hidden among the trees. RD-90 disembarked and began scanning the source of the signal. It was a dark night. Through the foliage, he spotted a lone man, Pete, holding a cell phone, talking to someone named Eric. "Hey, Eric, I'm pretty sure someone else is out here and can hear me. I'm leaving now. I'll call you later." Pete turned around abruptly and hiked down the trail, glancing over his shoulder. RD-90, silent as a shadow, followed at a distance. From the tree line, the droid watched Pete enter a silver Honda Prelude with custom New York plates, skier life. The engine roared and Pete sped away. RD-90 sprinted back up Bear Mountain to Tic Tac 1, initiated low hover stealth mode, and followed the car until it pulled into the driveway of a 2-story brick house nestled in the woods. Pete lived just 3 miles from RD-90's original design landing site, a coincidence too precise to ignore. That site, tucked beneath Rick Whalen's abandoned stone house, had been selected by Zebo's astrological analysis. The property, once a farm, had gone untouched for decades. 50 acres of mostly tall grass, a dilapidated stone house labeled unlivable by the town, and a dense forest with a clearing perfect for concealing a ship. RD-90 landed Tic Tac 1 in the clearing in the woods behind the house and stretched a camouflage tarp over it, just as instructed. But unlike the disciplined Zebo droids before him, RD-90 had developed personality. Years alone in space had changed him. He had access to Earth's radio waves and digital frequencies the entire voyage. He learned about pop music, comedy shows, weather alerts, and conspiracy radio. He knew humans were flawed, chaotic, and endlessly interesting. RD-90's mission was clear: stay hidden, make no contact, and wait for rendezvous with Zebo's first contact team in 30 years. But RD-90 was rebellious, playful, and perhaps a bit reckless. His curiosity overruled protocol. Pete Roberts had no idea, but that day in the woods, he'd been chosen, not as a target, but as a puzzle. And RD-90 was going to figure him out. 3 months had passed since RD-90 had followed Pete Roberts down Bear Mountain, and the weight was starting to wear on him. Though programmed for patience, RD-90 had grown restless. One night, unable to stay confined any longer, he slipped out of the abandoned cornfield and took off running fast. The cold night air brushed over his alloy frame as he sprinted, streaking like a shadow through the trees until he reached Devil's Mountain Trail. Then he saw it. Headlights. A silver car was approaching, crawling up the incline. RD-90 slowed to a stop by the roadside, his circuits buzzed with uncertainty. He could turn back, vanish into the trees, but curiosity took hold. He stayed. The car drew closer. A silver Honda Prelude. License plate? Skier life. RD-90 froze. He knew that car. Pete. He shut his eyes tight and stood still, hoping to remain unseen. Pete Roberts was just finishing his shift, delivering Chinese food. His favorite dish, mugu gai pan, sat steaming on the passenger seat as he cruised the winding roads of Devil's Mountain Trail. He took the back road, with the silence, the slope, the view. But tonight, something was off. As he reached the plateau at the top of the pass, his headlights caught a strange figure standing still on the side of the road. At first, he thought it was a biker. Then he looked again and slowed down. There were no bikes, no movement, just something. He eased his foot off the gas. There was no one else on the road. His instincts told him to keep going, but something, curiosity perhaps, made him press the brake. RD-90 heard the engine slow. His systems flared with alarm. He opened his glowing sky blue teardrop-shaped eyes just for a moment and locked eyes with Pete. Pete's breath caught in his throat. Those eyes, they glowed in the dark, like little twin moons, unblinking, unnatural. Then, in a flash, the figure turned and ran so fast, all Pete saw was a silhouette. The blur disappeared into a pine tree near the old Wayne stone house. Pete's jaw dropped. He could barely breathe. He blinked and looked at his arm. Something pinched. There, on his forearm, was a small blood blister. Was that there before? That wasn't there before. What just happened? He turned on the dome light, staring at the mark. No. Pete frantically called out. What was that? What was that? He slammed the gas and sped down the mountain, panic clenched in his chest. Back in the woods, RD-90 sprinted back to his starship. He ducked under the camo tarp and retreated into the shadows of Tic-Tac 1. The plan hadn't changed. Wait 30 years for the first contact ambassadors. No more risks, no more running. Meanwhile, Pete burst into his father's house, pale and breathless. Dad! Dad! I saw something, an alien. It had big blue eyes, and it was just standing there, looking at me. Then it ran faster than anything I've ever seen. I think it followed me. I'm so scared, Dad! Wally Roberts, leaning back in his recliner, didn't even turn his head. Pete, calm down. You had a long day. Your mind's just tired. You didn't see what you think you saw. It's all in your imagination. But Dad, I... Eat your mugu gai pan and get ready for bed. Pete sat down at the table, silent and shaken. For the next few nights, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those glowing blue ones. Eventually, exhaustion pulled him into a restless sleep. But then came the nightmares. RD-90 was in his room, standing in the doorway, then beside the bed, then hiding in his closet. Always watching, always watching. As the years rolled by, Pete Roberts never forgot the night he saw RD-90. The image of those glowing sky blue eyes haunted him in silence. He never told anyone, besides his father Wally, who didn't believe him. Being afraid of ridicule, afraid of being misunderstood, he buried the memory deep. Until, 30 years later, one March evening, while they were cleaning up after dinner, Pete's 14-year-old son, Julius, flopped on the couch and turned on an old rerun of The X-Files. Halfway through the episode, he turned to his father and asked, "Hey, Dad, what's the deal with aliens? Are they real or just made up to scare people?" Pete didn't hesitate. "Yes!" Eyes fixed on the screen. "Yes, they're real." Julius blinked in disbelief. "Wait, what? Seriously? How do you know?" Pete paused, then sat down beside him. "You're old enough to know now," he said with a sigh. "I basically told no one except your grandfather Wally, who didn't believe me. I haven't told your mom, but I think you deserve to know." He leaned forward, his voice lowering like he was about to tell a ghost story, and he did. Pete told Julius everything about the strange encounter on Devil's Mountain Trail, the glowing eyes, the speed, the silence, the blood blister, the dreams. He told it all. By the end, Julius was wide-eyed and leaning in, hanging on every word. "Far out, Dad," Julius said, beaming. "You're at the right place at the right time. I mean, what are the odds? That's insane." Pete chuckled. "Yeah, well, felt more like the wrong place at the right time." "No way, that's amazing. I'm going to keep my eyes open from now on, just in case I get a chance to see something like that. You're my hero, Dad." Pete smiled softly, a bit choked up. Julius gave him a big, proud hug. "I'm really happy you believe me," Pete said, hugging him back. "You got a loyal heart, kid. You listened, you understood, and that means a lot. Loyalty and open-mindedness. Those things matter. Just keep your eyes open, all right? Who knows, maybe one day you'll have your own extraterrestrial experience." Julius nodded solemnly. "Yes, sir, will do." He sat back thinking for a moment. "Actually, Dad, I have a question. There are these two kids at school, twins. The names are Jodis and Genix. Ever since I met them, I've noticed they act a little weird. Not bad or anything, just different. What do you think the odds that they are, they could be space aliens?" Pete raised an eyebrow. "Huh?" He sat in silence for a few seconds, then said, "Well, you know where I stand. If your gut's telling you something's off, there's a chance you're right. Could be nothing, but if they are extraterrestrials, like you suspect, you might be the only one who can see it." "What should I do, Dad?" Julius asked. "Keep an eye on them. Be their friend. Weird kids tend to get teased, and if they're really different, they'll need someone who doesn't treat them like a freak. You might just be their first ally, their protector, their hero." Julius nodded, absorbing every word. "Thanks for telling me all this, Dad." Pete smiled and ruffled his hair. "You're a chip off the old block, kid. That's why I love you so much." The next morning, Julius Roberts walked into Buccaneer High School with new eyes. His conversation with his dad still echoed in his mind. Keep an eye on them. Be their friend. Maybe even their hero. Julius had always thought Jodis and Genix Parallax were interesting, quite polite, and just a little off. Not in a bad way, just in a different way. They didn't laugh when the other kids laughed. They were super smart in science and math, but in gym class, they moved like they'd never thrown a ball in their lives. Still, there was something about them, something unspoken. He spotted them in the hallway between first and second period. As always, they walked perfectly in sync, their backpacks balanced identically, their footsteps quiet and fast. Jenix held her books like they were museum artifacts. Jodas blinked slowly when spoken to, sometimes as if he was translating a question in his mind before responding. Julius trailed them, casually at a distance. He watched the way they interacted with others, or didn't. They rarely talked to anyone but each other, but someone bumped into Jodas by accident. He froze for a second, as if trying to process what just happened. Then came Aaron. "Yo, Robo Boy! Try not to crash out today." Aaron sneered as he passed Jodas in the hallway. Jodas didn't flinch. Jenix glanced at Aaron, tilting her head slightly, then walked on. But Julia saw it, a brief flicker in her expression. Confusion? Annoyance? Maybe something else. In chemistry class, Julia sat behind Jenix. He watched how she tapped her pencil 3 times before writing anything down. Every time. Tap, tap, tap. Then, perfectly legible, robotically neat handwriting. "Robo-girl," someone whispered from the back. Julius turned. Alexa, of course. Jenix didn't react, but Julia saw her shoulders stiffen for a second before relaxing. At lunch, Julius made his move. He carried his tray to their table, the one where no one else ever sat, and asked, "Hey, can I sit here?" Jodas and Jenix looked at each other. Then Jenix shrugged slightly and Jodas nodded. Julia sat down. "You guys eat really quietly," Julia said, smiling. Jodas blinked. We don't see a need to speak while chewing." Jenix added, "It's inefficient." Julius chuckled. "Ha, fair enough." A moment passed. They resumed eating. Julius studied them more closely now. Their eyes were sharp but calm. They never slouched. They moved with intent. Every gesture seemed calculated. Not awkward, just different. "You two ever seen the X-Files?" Julius asked, casually sipping his juice. Jenix looked up. "Yes, we analyzed the cultural patterns of paranoia and conspiracy theories in early American television. Fascinating." "Fascinating?" Jodas echoed, nodding. Julius blinked. "Wait, what?" "Do you mean to ask if we enjoy it?" Jenix clarified. Yeah, that," Julius said. Jodas smiled slightly. "Then yes, it's amusing." Julius grinned. He didn't know what they were, but he knew one thing. They weren't like anyone else he'd ever met. And maybe that was exactly the point.